Ever wondered what it's really like to self-publish? Obsessive, compulsive, addictive. Autonomy, power, freedom, control. Accountability, responsibility, a heavy burden. These are just a few of the feelings that self-published authors have every single day. In this podcast, we'll explore the everyday of being a self-published author with a focus on process over outcomes. If we do the small things really well every single day and consistently, then the outcomes will take care of itself. Here is what it's like. Welcome to the diary of a self-published author. Hello and welcome to the diary of a self-published author, episode 2 with me, Stuart White, self-published author and founder of WriteMentor. I'm recording this episode on Thursday the 4th of May, late in the evening once the kids are in bed, and in advance of releasing the episode tomorrow morning, Friday the 5th of May. It's Thursday the 4th of May though, so I can't let this pass without saying may the 4th be with you. So everyone who's listening or watching on YouTube, I hope you all had a happy Star Wars day. I know that I did. Watched some of the Young Jedi with my daughter. That's the new series on Disney, which is well worth a watch, especially if you write for kids. It's quite good to see some actual kid characters and watch their growth in a science fiction setting like that. Very good for me and my writing to see that. So that was a fun evening, and it's been a fun day overall. So we're on Thursday the 4th of May, which means that we have now passed another week since I last spoke to you, and a lot has happened in the writing world, both the self-publish and traditionally published world. Have had a number of things happen. So when I was trying to decide what to chat about in the opening section, the general news from the publishing sphere, there was a few things that I could have discussed, but I'm going to go with one which I think is an important one, and it was one that's had a lot of attention this week, which is about the use of AI for authors, for illustrators, and in publishing in general. The reason why this is newsworthy is because the Bradford Literature Festival decided to use some AI artwork in their promotional materials for the festival. A few people, and not just a few, actually, a lot of people have called them out about it, and they doubled down, I think, with their response, and it's not gone down too well. And I think I saw today a few of the people who are supposed to be at the festival deciding to withdraw on that kind of ethical grounds, and definitely something I agree with personally. But it's a very difficult time we have coming up, I think, when it comes to the use of AI. Now, I know, particularly in the self-publishing sphere, the use of AI illustration is something that I don't think everyone who self-publishes will necessarily agree with me on here when I say I don't necessarily, in fact, not, I don't necessarily, I completely don't think that it should be used for covers, for example. Promotional materials for a self-published author, I feel very icky about it. I wouldn't do it myself, but it's a slightly different discussion, I think. But for covers and other things, I think you've got to, and I spoke at length about this in the last episode, but I think you've got to use the expertise and experience of a human illustrator or cover designer in your books, because as good as AI can be with some tasks, it's never going to encompass what you want it to. But more than that, AI does not have the same level of experience and personal experience from the illustrator's point of view, the cover designer's point of view, of working with other covers within that genre. And so it's important that I think we still continue to employ people to do those. And I guess if you're listening to this and you're either a self-published author or you're planning on, you might not necessarily agree with me on this, but I just think the soul of your book, I just feel funny about it not being produced by a human. And again, this will lead on to the discussion about AI constructed narrative or AI constructed blurbs or AI constructed synopses or taglines or pitches or whatever you want to call them. Again, I don't feel massively good about that either. I actually have played around with the chat GPT function before, and it has, I guess it has some limited uses. For example, if you want a list of blah 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 things, then it can give you a list quite quickly, and it's maybe slightly quicker than you searching on Google, which again is just using an intelligent search engine and so on. But yeah, for the use of creative, original work, I don't think it's something that we should be, or a field or an area we should be venturing into. So yeah, I think that's an important one for me anyway. Other people might obviously have different opinions on the topic, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, and then to go back to the original point, the original story as well, I do hope the festival will reconsider. I don't know, maybe if they've got no budget left because it looks as though they've employed a creative agency, so that's what puzzles me. So they've obviously paid money to this creative agency to produce all their materials, their marketing materials, and so on. So it doesn't feel right that they've then used AI to produce. There's nothing about it that I feel particularly good about, and so let's watch and see what they do over the coming days. But I certainly think, and from a self-published author's point of view, I am certain I'm going to stay away from the AI thing for now. I think it's got some uses, but from the creative point of view, it's got to be humans that write the stories and do the covers and so on. So yeah, that's my take on it anyway. So that brings us on nicely to the second section of the podcast, which is discussion of my own writing and editing and what's been going on with me this week. So I continued to work on my middle grade novel, the Astra Firestar time travel one. Written a few new scenes, created some new little twists and some nice symmetry to the story as well. I was looking at how I could use symmetry between my ending and my beginning, and seeing how I could show and amplify the illustration of that character growth in our main character. So I was experimenting a little bit with that and writing some new stuff, which was quite fun. I got some more beta feedback on my YA novel, The Nameless, and I had a look through all that as well. And there's some really good points in there, and some definitely some things for me to work on there, which is quite exciting as well. Peppered with, of course, and this is what you want as well, a little bit, is a lot of praise and people saying that they enjoyed it and they really liked aspects of it. They couldn't put it down at times, blah 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 blah. That's the kind of stuff that you want to hear, obviously. But it's good that it was well delivered in terms of a good amount of positive feedback, along with a realistic and doable number of items to try and improve. I've had a couple of sets of feedback recently, actually, that have been a little bit on the harsher side. Just, I guess, people just and this is just the nature of it, and you can't please everyone with your work, and I think that you would be unwell if you tried to do that. But yeah, I'm gonna work on a few things and see if maybe that'll win people who feel similarly to those DNF readers, that when it comes to publication, we'll get less we'll get less of that. But yeah, anyway, so I've been working on those two novels this week, and it's been good. I've enjoyed the little I've done of that. I've been working as well. Obviously, I've got school during the day, and kids stuff at the night, and so on. So yeah, I've not had loads of time to do much, but I have been working on that. I also today and this is this is classic. I should have been editing, and instead I was writing out an outline, a Save the Cat beat sheet for Ghosts of Mars, which you can see up on the shelf there just above me, the Ghosts of Mars sequel. And I was playing about with titles as well when, after I'd kind of got the main beats down, and I've got the location now. I've got the main thrust of the plot, the main heart of the story, which is good. That's good to establish early on, and I'm just sort of trying to establish a bit of tone and theme as well now, along with that, and just make sure that there's continuity from that first book in terms of those things, but also that we're delivering the reader a different story and a slightly different journey as well, while maintaining obviously that continued character arc and growth for all the main characters from the first book too. And that's obviously quite tricky, and so that's taken a little bit of thought and time this evening. But that's been quite fun actually. I haven't been at the sort of brand new story brainstorming and outlining stage for quite a while, and it's been quite refreshing and energizing, and it's something that's got me a little bit excited, which is good because I think if you spend a long time on edits and rewrites and uh, not really doing that exciting first draft stage or outline or idea stage, you can forget about the buzz of coming up with new stories, new worlds, new characters, etc. So that's been good for me and healthy for me, and that's obviously a good tip as well. If you're a writer and you maybe have been working on a story for a long time, continually doing rewrites and edits and so on, and you are feeling a bit burnt out or a bit like I need a change here, just write. You don't have to start a new novel immediately, but you can start writing down some ideas. It really does get you excited when you start just developing that little kernel and then expanding it out into this world full of these characters that you have made up from firing electrical impulses in your neurons inside your think meat inside this skull of ours. So it's incredible and it's exciting, and it's definitely something I'd suggest doing if you're feeling a wee bit scunnered with your work. So from the planning point of view, I am still looking at the same sort of timelines as I was as of last week. Nothing's really changed in that point. I'm going to look to try and get this middle grade and YA out before the end of the year. Obviously, that's a few months away, but we've got the cover to come this for both actually to come this summer. Edits are ongoing. There'll be a wee bit of a build up to both of them, and I don't want them happening overnight from each other. They need a bit of space between them, so I'll need to work out when book one's going to be, or book two's going to be, and then when book three's going to be, and so on. And then once I'm on top of those things, I can spend a bit of the rest of this year just drafting and working on some of my first draft or underdeveloped ideas that I've got brewing as well, because I've got two or three stories which are in first draft stage and aren't complete yet, but are well underway, and so just finishing those off as well, just to get get more projects on the go. I this is the thing about me, and you might be similar as a writer, or maybe you're very different. Maybe you're ultra focused. You're one of these good people that can just work on one story and one project at a time, and that fulfills you and satisfies you, and you want to work on that thing to perfection. And I'm a little bit jealous of that, to be honest. I wish in some ways I was a bit more like that, and I had a bit more discipline to just focus on that one. But I like to mix and match with the projects that I'm working on creatively, and it's healthy for me, as I was talking about a minute ago there, when coming up with new ideas and outlines. It's healthy for me, and it energizes me to have multiple things on the go. And so if you are that kind of author as well, that's okay. I think I've become quite uh, well, maybe I'm speaking too soon here, but I think I've become quite adept at switching from one voice and one world, story world, to another, I think. And so I quite enjoy doing that. And I think generally speaking, if you read a couple of pages, a chapter of a project, you can get back into the flow of that world and that voice, I think, and can kick on from there. But at the same time as well, what I quite like about it is you learn things for every story you write, you're always learning new stuff, and you're finding out better ways and more efficient ways to do things, or you're finding out what your real strengths and weaknesses are, and you're developing those weaknesses and you're building on the strengths. And if you're working in simultaneous projects, it's quite good actually, because I think you're learning at a faster rate than you would if you just worked on one project at a time. And I actually spoke a little bit about this in one of my tweets. Actually, I think it was last week, about that slow, gradual growth and development as a writer. And if you only focus on one book and you spend a long time on it, 2 3 years, whatever, then that will stifle your development, because only by writing new books and challenging yourself to new projects do you really grow. And some people might disagree with me again on that, but that is my view on development and growth and learning. As a teacher, I can see that when we move on to new topics, for example, you see the kids that, there's a renewed glint in their eye. Oh, I'm learning about something new now. And then you can see them refocusing, you can see them increasing their motivation, you can see them wanting to learn more about this new topic. And I think that for us as writers as well is a healthy attitude and approach to it. But maybe, yeah, again, maybe you might not agree with me, and that's obviously perfectly fine. Everyone has to find their own path and their own way of doing these things. So from a planning point of view, that's what's on the horizon for me, and yeah, I'm still excited about everything. It's really nice to have so much on the go, even if at times it means I sit down to work at my desk and I'm like, what am I going to do today? And often I either do nothing because I've got too many options, which happens a lot, or I sit down to do one thing and I'm just not really in the mood for that thing, and I end up switching back, and maybe just not being as productive as I should be. But I think overall that's the best approach for me. So let's talk a little bit about marketing. I spoke last week about having been in the preliminary stages of doing some Facebook ads, that my Amazon ads had done quite well in April, and I was thinking about doubling down on them as well, and increasing my daily budget for those. And I have continued on both fronts. So we'll start with the Amazon ads first. I increased my daily budget on that. I increased a few bids and a few keywords as well, just to see if I could get more clicks and impressions, and hopefully then more sales. And what I have succeeded in doing in the last week is increasing how much I spend without increasing my sales. So essentially, essentially the thing I feared, which was messing with the ads that were working okay for me, I've managed to make them work less well by playing around with them. But again, the key thing with anything like this is it's a long game, isn't it? And we're only 4 days into May, and it's too early for me really to make a judgment on how well those things are working. So I will leave it a few weeks before maybe having a look at it again and seeing if I need to adjust the budget. And this is why, as I spoke about last week, it's so important that we view this as a long game. It's not a short thing, and so you can't just put out an ad for a week or 2 weeks and think, oh, it's not working, I'm going to stop it. You've got to give it time, and you've got to be willing to just maybe lose a wee bit of money, so that in the long term you can make a little bit of money. And that can be a hard thing to do. And you obviously have to have your own limit. You can just say, well, I'm going to spend 30 quid or 50 quid. And actually on Amazon ads, that will go quite a long way. You'd be surprised how long 30 or 50 quid in your budget can go on Amazon ads. So that's obviously something to keep in mind as well if you are going down that route. In my Facebook ads this week, I continued with the ad. I get loads of clicks. I think I talked about this last week. Continued to get lots and lots of clicks. Just unfortunately, not very many sales as a result of it. And I was tracking the clicks and the link to sales, and yeah, we just weren't seeing, like, the Amazon ads get way more return on ad spend compared to the Facebook ones. So I paused one of the Facebook ads I was doing, and I've continued with another one, which is a little bit more targeted. And I'm using a video, my book trailer, in the ad rather than a static image. And so far, that one's actually been doing a little bit better. And it'll be interesting to see how that one goes over the next few weeks, and just see if maybe that book trailer is a better click magnet. I don't know if that's the right word, but a click magnet for those who are coming across ads from a book on over on Facebook. So well, I'll keep you up to date with that, and obviously if I find that book trailer is working well compared to the static image, then that's obviously something that you guys can have a look at trying out as well. Book trailers are good. I think they're a good bit of marketing material for you to have. Good for your website. Good for putting on social media. Good, obviously, for stuff like this too. So, and obviously, if you do school visits as well with kids and so on, they're quite good to just show at the start of that, maybe on as a wee embedded video on your first slide, just to give them a taster for your book. And kids love they like video more than they probably like listening to a monotone Scotsman talking about about writing and his books. So yeah, it's a good investment, and I've been using that in my Facebook ads over the last week. So I'll keep you up to date with how the ads are going. It's good to maybe you might be listening to this and thinking, yeah, I know all this stuff. It's not really anything new to me, and that's fine. And if you are picking up one or two wee things from that, then that's great as well. But I shall keep you up to date with everything in the world of ads next time. Finances. So finances are okay at the moment. I got paid for a couple of gigs that I did at the end of last week, I think it was. So the school visits, which are a good little source of income. I don't know if I spoke about this last week or not, but in terms of income, for every one school visit I do, like a 30-minute or 45-minute Q&A, you're talking I would have to sell like 50 or 60 books to make the same amount of money. And so in terms of author income and looking at this as a viable business for you as a full-time author, then they're worth doing those. Getting yourself uh, experience doing lots of these visits, getting testimonials, getting booked in with schools and all that. It's going to be a good little money maker for you as a self-published author. And for me, it's not really about making the money. I've got a job, so I'm not doing the self-published author thing at the moment to like actually pay myself. But what all that money that's coming in does is it puts more money in the bank account that I have for my self-published business, and it means that I've got more money then to spend on things like covers and illustrators and designers that I was speaking about earlier on, or on the ads that I was speaking about a moment ago, or it might be on video trailers for your book, or it might be on anything that you have to spend money on, editing and so on, in self-publishing, because as you know, it's a pay first and try and earn the money back later type of gig with self-publishing. And so yeah, having money in the bank is good. And anyway, that's quite good. And I also got paid for an article I wrote as well, which was nice. It was I didn't actually realize I was getting paid for it, so that's always a nice little bonus as well. So that's going in, and yeah, I'll put that money towards maybe some ad spend, or towards the covers, obviously, that I'm getting done at the moment, and we'll need to pay for very soon. So yeah, it's worthwhile looking into these opportunities if you are an author, self-published author, because schools have kids who like to chat to authors about the process, about writing a book. Like, this is the thing, and this is where there's a bit of a mis a misbelief, I think, about self-publishing and so on. Kids don't care if you've self-published or you're with a traditional publisher, or how big your advance was, or whether you get no advance and you've spent all the money yourself to get the book published. They actually don't really care at all. They just want to know about your story. They want it to be a good story. They want it to be fun. They want to ask about writing stories, because a lot of them want to do that themselves. And so don't ever think, oh, I maybe shouldn't put myself forward for those opportunities because I'm self-published. I would say in some ways you have more experience than someone who's traditionally published, because you've been way more involved in the whole process from start to finish. You have way more things to talk about than someone who's traditionally published. They will be able to talk about their book and writing the book and editing, but beyond that, not a huge amount. Whereas, we've been at the forefront of every single role that's involved in publishing a book, and so therefore have a lot more to chat about. And I know that I have had at least one conversation with a kid
at a school where we talked a little bit more about that, about the other side of producing your own book and so on, because they I think they had some sort of interest in it. So that was quite nice. And anyway, just don't rule yourself out. Always give things a go. And yeah, like self rejection is the worst. It really is. It's worse than rejection. And so don't self reject on that front. Okay, moving on. Next session's a little bit about me personally and my health, physical health, mental health, and what's going on with me. So I had a couple of bad days actually over the last week. There's been I've been a wee bit stressed about a few things, about like my situation for work next year, and nursery arrangements, and just life things that people have to worry about and get stressed about all the time, and that has had a wee bit of a negative impact. And I've definitely been a lot more anxious over the last week than I had been before, because of those things. And obviously that then bleeds over, doesn't it, into the writing side of things and the writing business and so on. So yeah, I've had a couple of spells or bouts of quite intense anxiety, which has not been particularly nice. And it's not something that I've been better at that more recently, and so it's not something that I've particularly enjoyed feeling again. But fingers crossed, got the weekend coming, coronation, pledge your allegiance and all that stuff this weekend. Best thing about it, obviously, it's a bank holiday on Monday, so I'm off school, yay! So that's an extra wee day to spend with the kids, but also to maybe do a wee bit of editing if I can squeeze that in there, and work on some things. So yeah, it's a nice positive end to the week, I think, for me, and that'll hopefully outweigh the little blips that I've had mentally over the last few days as well. And another thing that just in that front as well, that kind of like it doesn't get me down particularly. This is something that's just a realism of being self-published, is just eligibility for things, in terms of, I guess, awards and prizes and stuff. You obviously are not eligible for quite a few of those things, and that's fine. I completely understand that, and I understand actually why in some situations you aren't eligible for some of these. But yeah, there was something I was looking at and I was like, oh, I quite fancy that, and then I saw I wasn't eligible and I was a wee bit bummed about that. But it's it's not. Whenever I think about these things, I always just think it's not on the organization or the thing that I was wanting to be part of. It's not on them that I've self published and that I'm excluded from it. It's more that I think, I hope, and this is where I talked about this actually in a tweet this week about the balance between having self confidence in your own work while at the same time acknowledging that it can be completely crap. And I do have confidence in my work that it's not entirely crap. Like I just there's enough social proof out there. There's enough people have read my work that have said it's not completely rubbish. It's actually all right, and so therefore, I think that my book could be enjoyed by a wider audience if I could do X, Y, and Z. But and some of those doors have been closed, is essentially what I'm saying. And yeah, but it bummed me a wee bit. But I'm very much over it now, and don't hold any grudges or anything, because I know in the past that things that we've done through WriteMentor, for example, we haven't been able to include self-published books for a few reasons, and so like for example, quite often like agent judges or publishers or whatever are not really looking for that, and so they say to exclude that from the process and so on. And so anyway, there's sometimes more to it than that as well. So there's a number of reasons why you can be in. Anyway, I was a wee bit bummed about it, but I am completely over it now. So to finish off with, I thought it might just be quite nice to do a little shout out to my Facebook group that I'm starting to build up. So if you are on Facebook and you fancy joining the podcast's private group, where we discuss things about self-publishing, things that have happened in the previous week's episode and things that are upcoming in the next week's episode, you can go and join me there. It's the Diary of a Self-Published Author. Just type that into Facebook. You should be able to find the group. It's visible, but it's private as well, which means you have to obviously click to join, and then I'll approve you when I see that. And I'm just doing that just so I've had Facebook groups before where you've had some random people join that just come in and spam or post things they shouldn't. So it's quite good to have a wee bit of control over what comes in, and it also means with it being private that the posts and stuff are not visible, and that's good for people who want to ask things that they might not be comfortable with in a more open environment. So there's a wee Facebook group over there, Diary of a Self-Published Author. Type that in, and you can join us there if you listen to the podcast and fancy asking some questions or clarifying things or asking about things for the following episode. And I'm also, if you are a self-published author and you listen to this and you fancy having a wee chat about your own diary, about what your week looks like, about the things that you get up to in terms of the main sections that I cover on the podcast. If you want to chat about similar things, that would be great. We could have you on. You could do a quick fire Q&A. We could get you to do a bit of reading from your work as well. I thought that'd be quite good to do a little first chapter read or first few page read of your novel, and you can talk about the development and production and release of your novel too. There's lots that we could potentially cover. So if you fancy it, come over to that Facebook group and you can maybe just get involved there, and we could have you on to have a chat. I've got a couple of friends who are potentially going to come on and chat with me over the next few weeks about their stuff. So we could get you on after that as well. All right, so that's the end of episode 2 of week 2 of the Diary of a Self-Published Author. I hope that you're enjoying these little mini-sodes of an insight into the life of someone who is going for it in terms of trying to become a self-published author who might one day become a full-time writer. You never know. It's not something that I'm thinking is going to happen tomorrow, but I'd love it to be a sort of a pipe dream long-term goal. It's one of those ones that's out with our control. It's an outcome, isn't it, rather than part of the process. So we shouldn't ever worry about it or put it into our planning. But if we continue with the processes, the good positive processes, and continue the output and the marketing and everything else that comes with being a self-published author, then maybe one day I can get there, and hopefully you can too. All right, because it's May the 4th, I will finish off by giving you the standard Star Wars greeting of May the 4th be with you. See you next time.